Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk about something I've been asked about quite a bit. I thought there was going to be some kind of patch notes or change, weapon balancing happening pretty quickly because they mentioned over on Twitter that they'd be making adjustments to certain weapon. In today's video, we'll talk about those specific adjustments, what I would recommend, and what the potential new meta will be after these individual changes. If you do enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Let's go ahead and take a look at the post from Raven. So here's a straightforward post from Raven. They did a little bit of adjustments to first and second circles have been reduced for Verdansk Resurgence. In-game open mic has been turned off. They fixed that. This is a couple days ago. They fixed all this stuff. But it says, and sneak peek at the bottom part right here, at some upcoming changes. So these are planned. It says balance adjustment for the Amax. A lot of people were commenting on the video the other day. They're like, oh, it's because of you, JGOD. They're going to nerf the Amax. No, they literally said it in the patch notes from Season 3. Well before I ever said anything about the Amax. So they're going to do something with that. We'll talk about the suggestion I have so that the gun will still feel good and will still likely be part of that top tier meta that most players will gravitate towards if they have any kind of gun skill. Then we have the FARA 83, and then the Bullfrog says they're going to have some balance adjustments. I'll go ahead and talk about what I think they would change and how they can change it in a way that wouldn't destroy the guns. The main reason why I wanted to do a video like this, because I'm sure someone over there is actually watching the content because of this last part, which really wasn't an issue until I put out a video, and then all of a sudden, but who knows, maybe that's just timing and how it works. Because right here it says changes to ADS firing speed on Cold War attachments, and that's when your ADS strafe speed and then firing movement speed, and they'll probably remove that completely for a lot of those guns, which will take a lot of these rifles, Cold War rifles, out of being SMG meta builds that we're seeing now, where they're pretty much all geared towards mobility and use it like an SMG that has good range and good bullet velocity and decent TTKs with headshots. They'll remove that portion, and a lot of those guns will be geared towards sniper support. So you'll use them. They'll be a little bit slower, but they're not going to have the handling of SMG. And people who want SMGs will have the opportunity to use SMGs again, because right now you're kind of limited. Bullfrog, LC10, top tier. And then beyond that, you got like the MAC 10, PPSH, lower towards the bottom. Both of the MP5s, amazing. There's a little bit more flexibility once you get outside of that top two. But we'll see kind of what they do, and I'll talk about the various ways that I would recommend changing them. So a straightforward way to do these nerfs are in ways that would not destroy the guns completely and still allow them to compete. The suggestions that I'm thinking they're going to change on the Bullfrog is they'll probably reduce the headshot damage, so that one headshot right now, currently, if you get one headshot with the Bullfrog and the rest land chest or stomach, you're going to end up with the 479 TTK, and that is equivalent to the FAR chest shots that we had when it was completely broken. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on this because all you need is one headshot and that TTK gets absurd. On top of that, if you manage to get two headshots in the mix, which obviously if you aim high, you get a little bit of flinch, they drop shot, whatever it is, you end up with two headshots, the TTK drops down to 399, which is kind of insane. I think what they will do is they're going to modify that headshot damage so that you'll need two chest shots for this really low TTK, and they're going to raise the TTK, and the average of a lot of close range guns is around 520 to 580 for SMG close quarters builds, somewhere in there, and this is going to allow that to kind of balance it and reward players with accuracy. If you manage to headshots, you're still going to get a good TTK. That's how I think they'll change it. And I think they need to do a mobility pass on all SMGs, so the entire SMG category, so you get a little bit better mobility, and then kind of offset the stats with the rifle mobility that we currently have. And that includes for Modern Warfare guns. I want better mobility for these Modern Warfare guns that really haven't been touched. I think they could see a little bit better mobility, and then we'd have a ton of close range options for people who want to play that way, aggressive with SMG, or if you want to have a more sniper support, then we have guns like the RAM. It'll be the XM4, the M4. There'll be a lot of things to choose from. It's just the long range options will be a little bit different depending on how people want to go about those. So that's the only change I would make on that gun. I wouldn't adjust any of these other stats. I would just leave them alone. When it comes to the FARA, I'm thinking the same change, but what they would do is instead of 31 to the body, which you can see here, 31 to the chest, stomach, and limbs, it would drop it down to 29. So it'd be a little bit more in line. This would not change the TTK at all. You can see that it's still 9 shots to kill for both of these categories. And then the number of the TTK, firing rate doesn't change, so we're going to get the same TTK. The difference is that instead of having one headshot bring it down to 532, you would need 2 headshots. So this would be more pushed into the sniper support category, and SMGs would still reign supreme within that 15-ish meters. That's currently the broken part with these. It's a little too easy. The FFAR still has this same issue, so hopefully if they do this to this gun, they do the same pass through on the FFAR so that one headshot does lower the TTK, and it's very similar to what we're seeing here. Instead of 608, it's closer to 600. So hopefully we see that same pass through. And then the mobility changes. This would be a very good and very usable sniper support gun, or you can use it as range, as a way a rifle's intended. Even though the Cold War optics are wonky. So that's that. And then the one a lot of people are concerned about, you can see it right below my cam. We have the Amax. The Amax, people don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's necessarily overpowered, but I think it's good enough where it's really no reason to use anything else. Currently in the meta, if you have even a little bit of gun skill, you can hit people at 120 meters with this thing relatively easy. Obviously, the mag size isn't great, but there are ways to change it so it can still feel amazing without completely destroying the gun. And I think this is where you'd see it, right? So we have, this is the normal one on the left. And then the right, I've added this further damage drop off. So pretty much from 24 meters, and obviously with the barrel, it goes up, and the muzzle with the monolithic, whatever that damage range is, it gets pushed out. This, we'd create another damage drop off, which is like in the 55 meters, similar to what we saw with the Kilo, but we wouldn't murder the gun. Like we would not put it into the nerf it to the ground. It'd still be very usable. What we would do is add that extra damage drop off, and it would only modify the head and chest shots. So people were still very accurate. You would still get a lower TTK. You would just have to get a little bit more headshots in the mix. Currently, right now, the way it works, if you get 5 chest shots, you get a lower TTK. If you get 2 headshots, you get an absurd low TTK at 476. That's why if anyone's ever on a head glitch, this thing's broken. Like it literally obliterates people. How this change would impact that is anyone at range, 1 headshot would get the equivalent of all chest shots. So it would require at least 1 headshot in the mix. And then you would have to get 4 headshots at range to get this absurd TTK, which is kind of relatively easy. That's why I have it in green, is that's a relatively, if somebody's on a heady, you shoot them, you're going to delete them in 5 shots total, 6 shots total. And the TTK is just absurd at 476. So I think having this change, it would still excel in the mid-range where you would expect it to. And at the further ranges, it just wouldn't delete as quick. But as you can see, the number of shots to kill goes from 5 to 8 to 6 to 8. Without that chest shot, it bumps up by 1, and we end up with a relatively balanced game. That's how I would balance it, and it would still be usable. The sweats and high-skilled players would probably still use it. It just, you would not delete people because of this one right here. This one right here is the big issue. Up at Words Infinity, hitting someone off a head glitch mounted, you delete people too quick at 476 TTK, just done. So that's that. So now once we've done that, the other part they got to worry about is the mobility. And we had the chance to look at the mobility of a lot of the guns as compared to the RAM. That's why the RAM is zeroed out. And I think what they're going to do is bring a lot of these rifles more in line with the Modern Warfare guns. Hopefully that's what they do. You're still going to have added strafe speed if you equip those attachments because that's their purpose. But you will not have that firing craziness, which we can see here. You get like a 70% movement buff on the QBZ. The FARA, kind of nuts. Mac 10 makes sense, but it's still probably a little too cracked out. QBZ strafe, like these are just way too high when you're trying to compete with regular Modern Warfare guns. There's not as much a reason to use them other than they have good hip fire. Like, you know, that's not really a good reason, but that's a reason. And I think what they're going to do is balance those out. So hopefully they don't destroy those. But like I said, it'll create a little bit more clearly defined roles within your loadout. So you have SMG rifle builds. You'll have sniper support builds with the sniper, obviously. And those would be the main 2 types of loadouts and that people would go with. The double rifle meta wouldn't necessarily be a thing because you would lack too much mobility. People would rather have the MP5 or one of those guns where you could be a little bit more aggro, where you do have to push the pace. And then we'd see maybe shotguns in the mix, which we still currently see, but that's because it's floor loot, right? So that's kind of how that works. So once those changes have occurred, I think we're going to have clearly defined roles. Top SMGs for close quarters, probably MP5. Mac 10 might still be usable. Bullfrog will be in the mix. We're going to have the LC10. If they don't touch that, it's still going to be pretty good as an SMG. And then in terms of long distance, it's going to kind of mix up a little bit. Amax would still be usable. We'd have the Bruin, the Krig, the FARA could be used at long range, because most of the changes I'm talking about would be for close, and it's still very good at range, TTK wise. Stoner could be used. Bruin, snipers can be used. So you got a really good flexible one. As long as they do it that way, I still want the Amax to be usable. I don't want it to be destroyed, but we'll kind of see how that all works out. Hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully we see this change sooner than later, because they put that in the notes a few days ago. I thought it would just be in the playlist update. So maybe towards the mid-season updates, once they add that carve, the ballistic knife, and I think there's one other weapon, maybe the baseball bat or something like that. I don't know. Whenever that happens, we're going to see that. We'll do some testing. Hopefully they're making the changes that we're talking about, and they're very clear about what they changed, so it just makes it a little bit easier on everyone in the community. Did enjoy the video, learn something new? Please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.